Hi everyone, welcome back again to this series on asset creation from D3t. I'm Matt Parsons, Associate Art Director. Today we're going to be talking about the third stage in our process, which is the detail model pass and the base for the high poly. Okay, let's get stuck in. So the detail model stage can progress once the blockout model is signed off. This is usually checked by a lead at D3t. There may be input from design or engineering if the item has specific gameplay functionality. And specifically how you approach this stage can be dependent on the high poly method, which I'll talk about more in a moment. But in my case, this stage involved adding all of the details that make up the final artwork. So this is everything that I need for the final model, a lot more in depth than, as you can see, from the blockout model we showed previously. Again, the focus is to make sure that scale and proportion of details is correct. That's really important. Ensuring the asset looks correct before spending time detailing in the high poly stage can also be a real time saver. So what I've also done here is set this up ready for the high poly. This can be dependent on the type of approach you're going to take. For me, the next stage is going to be to sculpt some details in ZBrush. So I've set my model up for sculpting. As you can see, some of the topology is not necessarily the best, but this doesn't matter. When I take it into ZBrush, we'll be fixing all of that. If you're using a mid-poly workflow, you may be baking against the model against itself, and you can just focus on this being the base for the actual game mesh. One important point at this stage is to determine the texture density. So working this out, which I'll talk about more in a later video, will determine whether you need to sculpt every single piece. For me, for example, I realized that I could actually split this into sections and duplicate some of these to save some time in the high poly stage. Okay, so the next stage is just to export this into Engine, as you can see in Unreal Engine here. And again, this is like the blockout stage, this is to check the proportions. So if we go into plane editor mode here, you can see I'm going to give it a quick walk around. Just check that everything looks correct. None of the details are too small for the scale. And then we're ready to move on to the high poly.